Welcome back everybody, it's DestinysJesus here. Today I'm going to be looking at 3 levels of trios, and this is all from the Frosty Frenzy. For our beginner level player, we're going to be looking at some players with 0 earnings who basically made it to the finals of the Frosty Frenzy, but just because of a couple of mistakes that they were making that they can easily fix, they weren't able to make money. They placed like 392nd, I believe. But our semi-pros, we're looking at just a team with around 500 earnings each. These guys were able to make it to the finals and make money, and they placed in that top 150 region. So we're going to be looking at what they were able to do and what they should be trying to do in the future to get into that extra money threshold, and then also just make it to finals consistently or trio events, since they do have a lot of potential. And then for our pro level team, we're going to be looking at Tayson, Chapix, and Reason. These guys are newly formed trio and they've already started dominating. They won 2 of the final rounds, and they also made money in pretty much every single round as well. As always, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and if you want to make sure to check out some of these videos when I do them live, I basically did all of these on my stream live, so make sure to go follow my Twitch. I think we're like a couple hundred followers off 30k as well, which would be pretty nice to hit before the new year. So our beginner level team who placed 392nd here, the main reason they didn't make money in this round when they definitely should have and definitely could have is just because of the fact they data spawned so much. They only played 2 endgames, so many short games here that it just cost them. If you're not a top level team, I wouldn't recommend contesting a top level POI like Slurpy Swamp, which is what these guys are doing. I'd recommend just doing something a lot more safe and passive. Do a split drop, maybe do like a smaller POI like Holly Hedges that you're more consistently going to win, especially in these finals where it's top teams playing. We're going to take it this 22-minute long game here where they got 18th place. A couple of really big mistakes I think you guys can learn from in this. Okay, for our semi-pro players, they're basically doing back split towards Misty Cabins. There's one landing on this main up top one here, one landing down this way, and then one landing the whole way down, and then he rotates down and gets all these fishing spots. From here, they've got a bunch of options. They can either rotate over this way towards the Camp Cod area, they can either rotate in towards Misty, or in this game, they decide to rotate over here and they get in a fight. Biggest thing with this fight that we're going to look at is just how badly they played it and how passively they played it as well. For our pro level players, we're going to be looking at Chapix, Reason, and Tayson. This is kind of newly formed trio. Tayson obviously just won the trio from TS and Mucho Mongrel, and now he's playing with these 2 insane mechanical players. I'm basically breaking down what their early game strategy. So basically what they're doing is landing at Salty Towers. They normally do a wide split drop, trying to get control of the Trump Tower, and then one player towards his back building. This allows him to easily support. We're also going to look at how they're able to go ahead and fight teams that are landing near them. So one thing they're really active on doing is just making sure as quick as possible, so within like 2 minutes of landing, they're already up and getting a snap trap, and they're also looking to actively push into Pleasant Park. This is kind of their biggest thing, where they're always able to get kills early game, just because of the fact that they're able to push into Pleasant Park, a third party that fight whenever they're uncontested. One thing you need to understand with trios is you're never going to be able to win a fight cleanly, especially an Osborne fight versus good players, unless you use warm items. The reason that he wastes a shockwave and a bouncer just to close the gap towards his opponent they've tagged up a little bit. Look at this perfect piece of control he goes for. First of all, gets the double floor and cone edit, cone slide, and the wall on the side to try trapping this player in. Realizes he's only got one other escape option. The guy can't go the way Reason was, and he blocked him by his house in this little diagonal. So Reason gets his double edit from above, gets the wall control, and then comes in with the P90. Tayson also really good awareness, uses another shockwave of his own to come over towards here. And they both pinch in, back wall control, perfect pinch on that guy, and they win the fight really cleanly. From here, off that initial knock, it's so easy for these guys to 3-2 these other players. Just make sure Chapix is over here, making sure that they can't move and they can't really rotate out. He's keeping them busy while these 2 are getting the thirst, and then they're going to push in, go for the fight. Chapix, Dragons are a shotgun, pretty simple stuff, and then from here he's just coming in with the AR. We get the guy white, they both push in, and Tayson's just standing there charging. Very standard stuff. The biggest mistake in my eyes that these guys made is just the fact they didn't get a car in their mid-game route. That means that even though despite their rotate timings were pretty good, everybody else who's taken a car in their trios is already in a good position center zone. So then let's say when, I'll just play it for a second, when zone pulls far north like this, they end up in a really scuffed position because there's no way for them to fast travel into zone. They obviously don't want to waste their rifts or waste their shockwaves to get into zone. They just want to try foot rotating it, and that's what scuffs them. If you didn't know, cars got a massive buff the other day. They go way faster in the sand, on grass. There's also one weird bug where they can just like float in the water, go down rivers really quickly, which is super useful. But now these guys end up getting a scuff situation here. They're pinched between multiple teams and they end up having to rift. And that means, okay, they waste the rift, whatever, they get into a decent spot. But the positioning here is really bad. You can see where they decide to land. Low ground inside this ravine. That literally costs their entire game. They go low ground here instead of getting a high position. You need to play as if you're an alpha team and try to get a good spot. A good spot on a hill, center third, would have been perfect for this game for them. So basically the deal with this game is the fact that these guys got in a mid-game fight and they got the instant knock. So we're going to see here how they're able to get this instant knock. They just sit up, they just sat in the bush. They've got really good positioning on the other team as they rotate in towards them. So they beam and get the knock, and And then from here it's very simple. Get the thirst as quick as possible and instigate the kind of 3v2 situation. Play 2 players with shotgun angles, 1 player spray and help, and you just try to wipe this team as quick as possible. Major reason for that is because you don't want to get third partied from a team up this way, as you can see as much teams, over towards down there's a team, inside Slurpee there's a team. You want to end this fight as quick as possible and not get third parties. Instead what these guys do is obviously they get a thirst, then they come over the top and grab the loot, and then from here they just spend about 2 or 3 minutes just AR spraying these guys. None of them even went for a wall take or a shotgun play to actually try and get some damage. They just walked, they sprayed. This other team's got 1500 mats each, so they just expand and make loads of boxes, and these guys never went for a wall take. 2 things I'd recommend for these guys to start doing is just learn the arc and wall replace. It's a really simple wall replace where you are able to come down and basically replace safely on a wall and a ramp. So basically how you do it is place a wall and a ramp here, and then you can swing on that wall, cover off this other wall at the same time, give yourself a round peak. Or alternatively, what you can do is kind of what we saw in that video and Noah Riley video that we did on W King, is just approach from the top, stand on like a flat like right here, and then swing on the wall and then go for a shotgun take from above. That way you can get 2 really nice shotgun angles, so you can go for damage and end this fight quicker. This guy spent so much time just spraying and pressuring from above. The guys just expanded for ages, and the fight took a lot longer than it should have. Because of how fastly they played it, they end up showing all their teammates get knocked. Now here they end up recovering after waste all of their heals on this fight. They finally get in with their shotgun patch in the fight. This just means that their entire game is good stuff. They don't even end up killing the second guy. They don't even end up killing the second guy. They just have to disengage with their mats that they have. Completely shambles on shield. The fight took way too long. It's a really important lesson. Whenever you have a mid-game fight and you need to end it in a 3-2 situation, just be confident. Either be confident in your decision to actually engage and just take the fight and play a shotgun angle versus the opponents, or be confident and just go, okay, well there's no point us taking this fight, we've already got the kill, we've already got the loot and the mats and the point, let's just disengage, let these guys go reboot, we can kill them later on. So when it comes to mid-game fighting, obviously these guys are really good at it, and we're just going to take a couple of examples from these mid-game fights that they have in this tourney. First of all, it's how Reason immobilizes himself at the front here. He doesn't want to move around at all and give himself away, so basically what he does is just sit right here trying to get an angle up close. Also, Chapix and Tayson are sitting the whole way back here, and just a quick note, this white skin is super OP. Whenever it's like sunrise or sunset, or even anywhere in the sand mid-map, it's very hard to get spotted and also trap close range. There's a lot of builds going on. I'd highly recommend you guys start using this skin. So Reason's playing this close angle with a sniper, misses his shot on the guy down below, but that means that Chapix got a split angle at the back, able to get a beam. Now, all 3 of them converge at the exact same time. Chapix is going for the spray from behind while coming in, Tayson is going for the height take from above, and Reason is that little flank angle that we saw earlier. He's going to go ahead and jump up on the skin that gets white. Tayson jumps straight in, and then he's going to stand versus the second guy. Now, that fight lasts about 10 seconds so far. Chapix comes in with a Dragon's Breath, able to get straight into the box, and with a fight skill. There's a full pro trio in the finals, wipes about 15 seconds, just because of good pre-fight positioning, and also just converging on the one that you've got below. This is just a quick example of how you should be box fighting in trios, and how you shouldn't be committing straight into the box. First of all, Reason here just drops on the cone and then goes to the double attack on the wall after the harpoon. Pretty standard stuff. Doesn't even pickaxe swing, right? Pickaxe swing in trios is so risky because the guy can just instantly edit. And now when the guy makes space, covers off his left hand wall so you can't get crossbox right peek. Pretty standard stuff. And now here, this right hand peek is super nice for you guys to start doing. Whenever you're on the walls of somebody, normally I'd recommend doing this on like brick or metal, but the wood cone works fine. And it allows him to get a right hand peek over the top. You can see the guy can't even see Reason from this angle, whereas Reason can just either go for the wall take or go for a shot. Gets the wall take for his tack, then he peeks in, and at this point he's been comming for Chapix to come over and help him. Chapix comes in, instantly exploits in, both on the box together, and they win that fight super clean. Dragon's Breath is so broken if you can just play it properly in trios. I wouldn't recommend more than 2 of them. If you can just have one player using that, other players using either attack or charge, whichever they prefer, it is so strong in mid-game fights. So again, our beginners make a really simple positioning mistake. As they get forced so close to them, they do an early rotate. This normally will be fine. One thing they didn't do is scout where they wanted to be, scout where the teams that are near them as well, and they put themselves low ground again. Low ground on 50-50 normally wouldn't be too bad if you have Redfish, but the fact that these guys have 0 surge and there's 54 people, so it's above that threshold where it's going to activate, means that they just get punished really hard here by surge. And again, they've got no sightlines, nothing to really get information around them or get storm surge tags on people as they rotate in. One thing that a lot of beginner level players don't really do too often is just think about the risk versus reward of going for a specific play. In this case, Kearns is trying to make a call that they should recycle that Riftfish that just got head popped, down there. And then look what his teammate has. He has 4 shockwaves and a bouncer each. His teammate has a riffish, bouncers, and a shockwave each. There's really no real reward for going down there, mainly just because the fact they can just rift and just play out this endgame with their movement that they have now, and they'll be completely in a perfect spot to play this out as a duo, even though their teammate got knocked earlier. Instead, he takes a massive risk by going down here and trying to find the riftfish. He still sees builds, commits in trying to find the riftfish. There's really no need for this. It's literally just greedy. Jumps down, gets into 50 between 2 players, and their entire team gets wiped on first moving when they had 6 shockwaves, bouncers, and a riftfish. Never get too greedy, always think about the risk versus reward of a specific play and whether it would be worth it for your team overall. If in doubt, always choose the safest play that has no risk involved. This is a very minor mistake, but it can have major consequences when it comes to endgame, and it's basically where you decide to land as the IGL when you rift. You can either go for a height take if the timing is right and it looks like it's free, like we'll see in the tasting game in a second, or alternatively what you can do is just land on a mid-ground layer, make sure you all land together, and then you can set up whatever movement, or you can just begin tarping for the rest of the zones. What these guys do is a really bad call. Is decide to land ultimate low ground. First of all, just means they can get beamed a lot throughout the air. There's also a high chance that they'll take a lot of damage, and that means when they land and zone pulls max distance back as well, just because the fact they're on his dead side, they have to panic rotate. You see here, Jinx gets beamed as he lands, he shockwaves forward, and all 3 of them are completely split. Make sure you're landing on mid-ground and you're all able to group up together on mid-ground off a rift. Same thing goes for any other types of movement, whether you're doing a bounce rotate or you're doing a shockwave rotate. Always make sure you try to aim for that mid-ground layer so you're not in a completely scuffed position, let's say if you get a max distance second moving. One thing you need to make sure that you do when you're going for a high take endgame is make sure that the timings of it are absolutely perfect and all 3 of you guys that are going for it all synced up at the same time. So what these guys go ahead and do is rift, and they also spend a lot of time scouting and figuring out how many people are in the air at the same time as them, and this kind of influences the decision to go for height here. Float, check how many people in the air. There's not too many people that are grouped up and on the same layer, which means it's mostly just solos and duos rifting. And Taysom makes a really nice call to go for this height that's kind of weak. See here, there's not enough connection points for this height. They haven't connected at front side at all, which means just Taysom is just going to go ahead and land at the back here. Lands at the back, chops it out, calls this for his teammates that he's going for height, he's making a play. Chapix is already landed and cranking up. Reason's just landing and he's going to go for height as well. And Taysom immediately just ramps up on height. At this point, charge is so useful for killing people out there if you can get a big shot like there. Just make sure you time it properly and they set up in their height. First of all, you make sure there's 2 on ultimate up together. These guys are securing it, stopping anybody else from rifting. Also able to force rifters down because their presence on height is pretty strong. And then from here, they just set up a normal, pretty standard height play. Placing the whole way on ultimate like they did in old trios. Chapix and Reason down low together. One thing that's super underrated in the trios meta at the moment is just making sure that one of your players is always carrying a harpoon. It's so useful, obviously chopping at your teammates like Reason just did there, but also just going ahead and grabbing all the loot. So there's no risk in him dropping down and getting boxed by a team. Allows him to immediately come upwards, split mats to his teammates. And then here you can see the power of having 2 players towards that lower level. Is when other players try to go up for height, they can easily take them out with shotgun. They just use charges and attacks and just play range on them, go for shots over and over. They can split mats the whole time, and they've got all this pressure that allows them to get so many kills. Whenever I see 3 players playing ultimate height together, they just don't get enough kills, and it makes the high ground position not really worth it at all. Again, all these just split angles, but all just spraying down, able to get so many kills. Other teams are trying to target mid ground, and these guys are just forcing them downwards. Very nice play, just jumps in, teammates are above spraying, very easy to kill. Get all of the kills on mid ground, force everybody down to low, and they also want to make sure here, when there's 2 teams left and it's just a trio versus trio situation, is that they try to get the knock as early as possible. They don't want the full trio on low ground for as long as possible making a play. They want to get the knock insta, and then that leads to them making a play. So they mess up their shockwave play, go out into Storm, now they drop all together, synchronize the drop on the 2 players remaining. Obviously it lagged a little bit, but you saw what they did. Just both drop together, both play shotguns out, and win the exchange at the end, while Chapix is up top, playing heal upwards.